at one point I remember sitting and there was this woman talking to me, and what she was saying was extremely boring. So in the middle of her sentence, I get up and walk away, go to a different room. And my sister goes after me and she says, "What happened?" It's like, "Why did you walk away like that?" And she said, "Because she's extremely boring and I don't want to hear it anymore." And she said, "Well, you can't do that. You can't just get up and walk away in the middle of somebody talking to you. That's just not done. You have to stay next time, or you have to tell them you're leaving."
Hi everyone, welcome to our second half of Driving to the Res. Hi Larry, hi Inelia.
Hi.
Hi to our panelists. We are here continuing our Ask Me Anything with Inelia and Larry. And we're excited because us panelists are ready with more questions. I'm Ashley Swale. I'm our co-founder of iBenz Academy. I am a mystic, life coach, yoga teacher, and a global HR leader.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Kara Consigli. I'm a pedagogy expert, a mystic, a gamer, an investor.
Hi, I'm Fred Guerin, and I'm a engineer, dancer, and member of this panel.
Hi, I'm Ileana Rogero. I'm a mystic, founder of El Método iBenz, architect, life coach, and psychic meditation teacher. Hi.
All
Hi,
right.
Liana.
Well, welcome to our panelists. And we're ready to go because we can't wait to hear what advice would you give yourself 20 years ago? And I think Inelia should go first on this one.
I was going to suggest that.
I knew it, Larry. I picked up on that.
I would, so 20 years ago, I would have been 37, I think. Something like that. And I would tell my 37-year-old, chill, relax, and just chill, relax. All is well. Don't stress. That's what I would tell her. Yeah.
Nice. And how about for you, Larry?
Well, I think there are a couple of, choice points in my life that I felt like if I had said something different or had different information at the time, maybe I would have made a different choice. And one of them was when I was just trying to get my butt to Europe, to go to Spain. I was in high school. I wanted to go to Europe. I had made exchange student friends, and I wanted to go to Europe as an exchange student. That would be seen the easiest way since I didn't have access to money to go to Europe, go to school, or a place to stay when I got there. And so I sat in an interview, and in the interview they asked a bunch of questions. One of the questions was, if we don't give you a scholarship, will you go to Europe anyway? And at that moment I was wondering, should I answer this as actually is true, or should I answer it in the way that I think that they probably want to hear? I'm so committed that I'll even go if I don't get a scholarship. And so I answered, yes, I'm going anyway, even if I don't get a scholarship, when in fact, that wasn't true. So I would say, don't say that.
So that was yourself. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. The backstory is Inelia actually drew a picture of me on my bike. I was going to go to Europe. I was going to Spain and ride my bike in Spain. She drew a picture of me.
I was in England at the time. We were doing an art project. So they said something, it was a methodology we were using for this art project. It was print screening. So you had to have 4 colors and stuff like that. Any design, anything you ever wanted. And this image kept coming up for me of a young fellow on a racing bike, in a purple racing bike.
An attractive young fellow.
Very attractive young fellow.
Yeah.
On this purple
racing bike.
You could see the the covers, his hands on it, and his face, and the helmet, right? Going really fast.
Yeah, and incidentally, I was working at McDonald's, that McDonald's I told you about, and my obsession was with bicycles. And Trek had come out with a new limited edition Trek bicycle that I paid like all of my paycheck from McDonald's like 4 months in a row or 4 paychecks in a row, something like that. It's like every 2 weeks we get paid, you know. So every 2 weeks I go give the bike store all my money and have this Trek on special order. It had the Italian racing components on it, and none of the other Treks really had that were like anywhere near that price. Only one problem was it was purple. It's like, gosh, I don't really want a like purple bike, but okay, if that's the one that has the Italian gear on it, I'm taking it. So I ended up with a purple bike, you know, that goes really fast. But I never made it to Europe because I said I'm going there anyway. Yeah, but the going there anyway was about freaking 35 years later. That was
The interesting thing was that this was an image that was for a final exam in art, one of the O levels in England, and they told me the teacher was going around, and usually these are destroyed after the fact because they're exams, right? So they have to be destroyed after a year or something. And the teacher came around to everybody and then looked at mine, and she was looking at it, and she said, take a photo of it. And I said, why? And she said, well, because this is going to be gone forever. So I don't have a camera. Just go into the locker room and get one of the school cameras, a film, and take a photo of it, she said.
Wow.
Okay. So I went off, took the camera, took the photograph, and said thank you very much. And then eventually I, sent the roll to the chemist, and they sent it back, and it had one tiny little photograph of that painting.
Yeah.
It was the tiniest little photograph because it was quite far, so I kind of cut it, So it was about this big, like 2 inches across or even less. And I put it away in my folder, my stuff that I carried around the world with me.
A lot of around the world.
It was a lot. And then I was unpacking one day, and I looked at it, and I put it up to the side, and Larry picked it up, and he said, wait, that's me. Yeah, he had his eyes, his face,
my bike,
and the bike,
my handlebars,
the handlebars,
my
everything.
gloves. I had these mesh gloves,
yeah.
things, Back then they were cool. You had cotton meshes on the back and little sharp fingers. And, the bike races
all the things.
Had uniforms. And
I looked at it, and I said, well, I used a reference photograph, but it was very different. Very different. And I said, plus the bike is purple. And he said, you'll never guess what. So, yeah, I guess we would have met probably if he had taken.
Yeah, things would have turned out a lot different if I.
And our lives would have been extremely different. Yeah.
So the advice to yourself was tell the truth in that exam. Did I get that right?
Yeah, in the interview, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that was needs based. Now that I look back on it,
of course.
So I assume he doesn't really need it. He's going anyway, so we should give it to somebody who really needs it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, don't answer what you think they want to hear. Just answer the truth.
Yep. I guess it worked out for our benefit, though, because you guys are here now. So.
Well, we would have been here then too.
Yeah.
Just we would have had 4 kids ourselves, I think, or 8.
Yeah, and less scars and damage.
True.
Less alcohol.
Better brains.
Different timeline.
Yeah. And the other thing that was interesting about that time was that I was absolutely obsessed with Alaska. It was insane. It's like I was living in England. I was from Chile originally, but I was completely obsessed with Alaska. And I was obsessed with it for years.
So imagine if you met a really handsome bike racer in a purple bike from Alaska. It'd been like irresistible.
Yeah, it would have been strange. And there was later on, I think there was a show on TV called Northern Lights or something.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Oh my gosh. I used to record it and watch it over and over. Yeah. And it was like a really boring show. It didn't have it.
It was the best show ever.
But it was like I was obsessed, Yeah, it was really bizarre. And then one day it was over, and I wasn't interested in Alaska anymore, like zero, like over. And then I became interested in New Zealand for a little while.
Where I was emigrating with all of my friends. We're going to go to New Zealand and live there because why not? Except for you had to have $10,000 in the bank account, which may as well be $1 million. They won't let you in without $10,000.
Yeah.
In the bank.
Yeah.
Like, well, how in the hell am I supposed to get that?
Mm-hmm. That's what stopped me too. And then, it was over that. After that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, I became fascinated with California. Why is everyone living in California? So I got to go to California and find where, and that happened to be where she was finally.
Yeah, it's 20 years ago. Yeah, I moved to California.
Then I became fascinated with California instead of Europe.
Inelia, you missed the question though. You didn't really say what you would have done 20 years ago. It sounds like you might have jumped on an airplane and gone to Alaska. You could have told yourself to do something like that.
20 years ago, Alaska was over 20 years ago. For many, many years, it's been over. Yeah.
Larry went back to like 35 years ago.
Yeah, I skipped the whole 20-year thing. I just go where I want. I listen to that.
He did his own thing.
I don't listen that great.
I'm shocked and surprised. I really am.
Anyway, I did have a question about how the we fits into your backstory, because you were giving your explanations about yourself, but didn't mention the we in there. So did the we have an influence on the decisions that you make in a major way? Is the we just all part of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, it's pretty much the main sense of self. If there was but the problem is that the experiment of being singular is an experiment. And it has been the growth, right? It's been a growing experiment or evolving experiment. And we can have a lot of knowledge around what is the universe or trying to translate into human, a lot of stuff. But about being human, we wouldn't have much information at all except for this lifetime and observations of other humans.
So will you have to rely on your own experience, like consciously kind of separate from the we, or to handle that part?
No, originally there was no I for many years, even as a little kid. It was just a we personality in a singular expression. And then it was a matter of, we need to really get inside this experience, because if we continue as a we experience, we're not going to learn much. It's very, very different to be in the we experience than in the singular experience. So we created a singular and a we experience that were separate from each other. So I would mostly remember the I experience, and the we experience was like forgotten kind of thing. Then now we're talking about 12, 14, 13, 14, something like that. So that I could develop as a well-rounded singular personality individual. And then the only access I had was to ask a question as a singular expression, and then close my eyes with my hands in my notebook, and then open them again, and the answer was from the we perspective. And I lived like that for many, many years. The me and the we wouldn't be...
Weren't integrated.
We're not integrated many years. And then when we got together, it was really the first time an experience of living with somebody who wasn't so self-obsessed that they noticed that they were two personality kind of things, right? or expressions. And so, I mean, I would say probably my kids would say mom's gone, right? But they never were interested in who was there, or why, or when, or what, right? And I noticed that when we were on an event, and usually we would come in for the events because most of the questions and things were like broader, universal reality construct explorations and stuff like that. And the chickens.
Somebody's happy they laid an egg, I guess.
And we were about to start that event, and we were coming in, and I was like, oh dear, this person, and he's noticing things, so what are we going to do? Uh-oh, well, it's happening. So I said to him, Larry, I'm really sorry, I have to go now. It's going to be a change, don't be afraid.
It was like it was a shock, and it wasn't a shock. It was like, I knew there had to be something going on here. How else to tap into all this?
Oh, and I said, whatever you do, we're going to have a conversation, but do not record it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that too.
It's very important you do not record our conversation.
Why?
And then the week came in, and I have like little flashes of it because it wasn't like a different personality, it's like, it's literally like a different perspective. And he had the phone on and was recording everything, about 4 hours of conversation. And then we went away, the perspective shrunk to singular, and I looked at the phone and he said, and I said, I don't think so. And so he played the recording, and it was white noise.
Wow.
4 hours of white noise.
Wow.
I don't listen that great.
Again, we're so surprised. Why did you tell him not to record, though?
Oh my goodness, our chickens.
Chickens.
Somebody's so proud.
There's something going on over there with the chicken.
I think we know where the eggs are now.
Hey Fred, we know where all of your eggs are that you bought. They're down there.
The eggs.
Find them in the forest.
I'll come by and pick them up.
We'll show you the area, and then you can go and get them. Probably 100 of them down there.
So we tried to ask twice, but why didn't we want to be recorded in that particular instance?
It's like there's a break in reality when like information comes into any person's life, and the human collective can dictate what that information is. Actually, it always has dictated what information can be made available and which information is not allowed to be made available by the human collective itself in the process of growth and expansion of awareness. There's like baby steps, because the last thing you want to do is break reality and break the game, because it's counterproductive. If you try to do that, everything just reverses back. It's a click and it's back to how it was before. So a lot of the information and questions that Larry was asking at the time were to do with understanding and connecting with this new reality where there's a larger sense of self, right? A different sense of self. And how does that translate basically to our life together? But also, the world, the universe, and everything. And also it's like a matter of if the recording had worked, then it would have been censored to fit into what the human collective is ready to release. Because there's no a chance in hell that he would have kept it in his phone and not shared it with everybody that he knew. So that's why that happened.
So what you're saying is Larry is the filter, and you'll say a lot of things, and there's no way he's going to remember all of it. He's just going to take a few pieces of what he's ready for.
That happens
And-
also.
Yeah.
Also happens. But I can say that with all of you too.
Well, yeah, of course.
Many times that we come in and have conversations with all of you, and we have no idea, and then you don't remember anything we've said. So that happens also. It's not just Larry. But the recording part is different because then you can play it back. You can put it on a loop and play it, and eventually it breaks into your mind and it stays there.
It's funny you said you don't remember what we said. And so are you we right now?
No. Well, this is the thing, you see, throughout the years, for about 4 or 5 years, what we did was to work through integrating both viewpoints so it would be easier to communicate and share and everything else. So there was an event some years ago that the we came in, everybody wanted to talk to the we, not me. I'm not that interesting. And then we had to organize a way to translate it on the go. So there was an integration happening between both viewpoints. So it could be like there at the same time. And at one point we were in the area still living there, and Larry came in, I think he served food or something, and we sat down, and I was in that fully integrated, or we're trying integrating fully and chatting and everything. And then he looks at me and he says, he realizes that it's not just Inelia, it's the we and Inelia. And he gets mad and angry, and he got really mad. So it's like, okay, that's not going to work, because he's in love with and he wants to live with Inelia, not with an integrated being that's both things, right?
Is that what is that your side of it, Larry?
That thing on there, your marital status or whatever, and the answer is it's complicated. Well, that was what it was getting complicated.
Is that why you were mad? You didn't want to live with the we?
He didn't like the fact that it wasn't announced, it wasn't shared, it wasn't told, right? Because we were testing to see how good we got, right?
But isn't like the we part of you? I mean, it's not somebody else, right?
Well, you remember interviewing them, right?
You know what happened?
Like? Do you remember? Does it feel like
yes. It's just it was more to get used to it, but I mean, I don't think it's not Inelia. Like I don't perceive it like
it's different.
It's different, yes.
It's different.
So, Larry, when you were getting mad, were you yelling at the we? Like, you get the...
No, nothing like that. Mad as in frustrated, you know? It's like, I'm not sure who I'm talking to, and what am I allowed to say to who? And I'm going to get in trouble for talking to the we when I should have been what I should have been to the Inelia. It's like, I'm not perceptive enough to notice the difference the instant it happens, these kind of things, you know? Like, there's too much pressure for me.
It's a lot of pressure.
You want to hold hands with the we and get in trouble for holding hands with the we when you thought you were holding hands with Inelia, do you?
Well, does the we feel your hand?
Funny, like, what are you doing holding a hand? What are you, crazy or silly or stupid, or what's wrong with you? We're not interested in holding hands.
Then we're not interested in Larry in a sexual partner way at all, like zero.
Yeah, so it's like...
And there was very little interest in an intellectual level either. It's like being interested in a little bug.
It's about the bananas, you know.
And he did not like that. So he wanted somebody who was interested in him.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, for all of us, like our construct in the I, me, and myself is so big part of who we are and our interactions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice
so the things evolved and there's more integration, but there's still a separation. And at some point when Larry got so mad, the we made an exit, right? The we awareness did not come back for 2 years. Oh. And then in those 2 years, there was a lot of work done for developing an I, me, and myself personality, which I wasn't very good at before, quite honestly.
Yeah, you actually were terrible at.
So that, gave the chance to evolve and grow and learn to be a proper singularity. Yeah. And to qualify that, I grew up with 2 professors who had a whole bunch of friends who were psychiatrists and psychologists and sociologists and all the things, and philosophers, which involve the exploration of the mind and personalities and all the other things. And I had like so many tests done, and it wasn't like a multi-personality disorder or anything like that, because there was no other personality, right? It wasn't a person. It was just an expanded state of awareness that was different and could not relate to a person.
So your parents noticed.
Hmm?
Your parents noticed.
Well, they knew there was something weird going on, right? But it was more like a
curiosity.
A curiosity, and yeah. So there was, they basically wanted one of these psychiatrists to tell them they had geniuses in the house. Because it really didn't have anything to do with me, but it just happened that everybody would be brought in to test us because they wanted to be told, yeah, your kids are geniuses.
You're special.
Yeah. You gave birth to Jesus or whatever.
Nice. Changing the conversation slightly, in the first half, you had talked about, Inelia, how you gave up on life for like 2 decades. I was curious, what would turn that around? Was that like a particular event or situation, or was it like a gradual shift that led you to no longer be given up on life?
So, the attacks on my personality, on my person, were so severe and from so many areas of life. I mean, sometimes I would walk in the street and somebody would try to attack me, that I gave up on life, realizing that this sucks. But also I was guided to put up a really thick barrier around me so I wouldn't be seen. And that kind of lowered the attacks quite a lot. And it was a really, really thick, if you can imagine a wall of a foot thick wall of lead, something like that all around me, right? And that kind of kept it a little bit more manageable, and it was better. There was less attacks and things. I mean, it's hard to imagine, really, because we're talking about from pre-birth to like 30-something, maybe, or late 20s, or 30-something, actually. And it's a lot, So that thick wall was, I created that when I was about, I think, 24, 25, something like that, when I went to university, and it was, a bit dangerous to be attacked, right? So, I mean, we're talking about people throwing their cars at me when I was driving, all sorts of stuff, weird stuff. And then I was sitting down, my sister and I used to go to these little book things in Seville, little fairs. And we had a little table with books and magic kits that we'd created to sell. And I was sitting there, and then I got the guidance. Oh, the frequency of the planet is changed now, and you can remove that big, thick layer. You can remove it now, and it's going to be fine. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I sat there in that little plaza, I like this, closed my eyes, and I removed it, and I thought, oh yeah, that feels a lot lighter, because if you're carrying a foot of lead around you all the time, it's really heavy. That feels so much better. And there was this woman, another person who was selling stuff across the plaza, and she looks at me, and she gets up, walks right up to me, sits next to me, and asks me a question about her personal life and what can she do about it. She didn't know me from Adam, And I look at her, and I start giving her advice. I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, that's really interesting. And then my sister kind of overhears a little bit of the last bit, and she goes nuts, right, really crazy at me. and tells me you should have said that and this and the other and blah, 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 and you're wrong and you're wrong and you're wrong. And I look at her and says, sorry for stepping on your area of expertise, because she was a trained Gestalt psychologist and homeopath and all the things. And she said, as I looked at her and said, next time I wait for you to get here and you can give the advice. Yes, you know. But what happened was, that was just her triggers, you know, the human-female competition and all the other things. What actually happened was that when she had a difficult case, she would ask me to be in the room. And then says, okay, Inelia, can you tell her or him what to do? And I would say stuff. And they would look at me with these big eyes and kind of, what did she just say? And then she would look at me and says, okay, try and tell me, and I'll translate into human. So what that meant was I would hold her hand and I would experiential telepathy the answer to her. And then she would spend an hour or two translating that information accurately, because she saw it properly. She would go like this, her eyes would go up and go, okay, great, okay, I got it. And she would translate it into human. So I was learning human speech. I was learning translation.
Learning how to translate what it is that you see.
Yeah.
Cool.
So she would, so that was part, I mean, that integration started happening then probably, you know. And she would, like, when she taught me a lot of social etiquette also. Like, there were situations that she would say, oh yeah, she's English. Or she would like, she's a bit special, you know, almost to the point of trying to make me walk around with a little kid's doll so that people know I was a little bit retarded, you know, at the social level. But it was things like, for example, she would have parties. She inherited that from my mom. She would have parties every week and her house. And I lived with her for a while. And at one point I remember sitting and there was this woman talking to me. And what she was saying was extremely boring. So in the middle of her sentence, I get up and walk away, go to a different room. And my sister goes after me and she says, what happened? You know, it's like, why did you walk away like that? And she said, because she's extremely boring and I don't want to hear it anymore. And she said, well, you can't do that. You can't just get up and walk away in the middle of somebody talking to you. That's just not done. You have to stay next time. Or you have to tell them you're leaving. So, oh yeah, I can do that. So a different situation happened, very similar. This person was blah, 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 blah. I mean myself or whatever. I got extremely bored. So I got up and I said, I'm leaving now because I find you extremely boring and I can't stand it anymore.
Yes.
So I went away. And then my sister comes after me and she says, no, that's even worse. But you told me to tell them I was leaving. Why? Whatever. She said, no, this is really bad.
Well, how did it go?
It's very bad. So she said, okay, so this is what you do. You tell them you're going to the toilet or that you have, you know, something to do. Or you say, yeah, just hold that thought. I'll be back later or whatever. She just said, oh, you have to lie. Okay. So I learned that, you know. And then it was a lot easier.
Yeah, but we are pretty terrible at lying.
Yes.
So it has to be a true statement that allows you out of there.
Exactly. No lying allowed. It's
so
very
it's more
hard.
like,
Yeah, very tough to lie.
I've had all my shots.
Yes.
One of those kind of things. Even though, you know, maybe not specifically the one the doctor's asking for.
It's like drinking shots.
You didn't say what kind of shots.
Or when.
Didn't say what kind of shots.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a process. It was a learning curve. But I would say that was when it changed.
That's pretty cool. Thank you for that insight.
It's not 100% yet. Don't worry.
What?
Yeah.
I've been told it's 100%. Excuse me. What are you saying?
Yeah, it's 100%. I agree. You're doing great.
Now, Fred, you can't tell people that in a conversation. You can't go and invalidate their whole experience. You have to, say something That
Pardon?
doesn't completely validate their existence.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
I like it. I like it. Good job.
So, Larry, you were sharing how you had missed so much school in high school that you forgot your locker number.
And combo, yeah. I didn't
And
even
combo,
realize.
yeah. And then Inelia mentioned the same.
Which I
So we
thought was
got-
really funny, right? How many people have
Right?
you heard of losing their locker in school, high school, as a senior?
I literally have nightmares of that.
Only as a nightmare.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I had nightmares for years after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got Larry's why of how he lost his locker combo. But Inelia, you just sort of glossed over how you missed so much school. So tell us, does it happen to have anything to do with a superhero alter ego or maybe a boy, or tell us more why you forgot your locker?
It was very boring. The reason and also the reason are both boring. I found the material and the conversations that were happening in the classroom and the data that was given in the classroom extremely boring. And I just couldn't stand it. And all I needed to do was go there once a week, ask my friends to look at their books, their notebooks for the material. That's all I needed, really. I had total recall anyway, so it didn't matter. I didn't forget anything. So yeah, it was just painfully boring. Painfully boring. I could pull my hair out as how boring it all was. Just couldn't stand it. So that's why I missed so much school.
Fair enough.
I'd rather stay home and play guitar.
Yeah. So if you have total recall, how did you forget your combo? I don't understand.
Yeah, because at one point I decided, what a great idea. I couldn't understand why people would forget everything. Right? And there was some stuff that I wanted to forget, especially stuff from what you just mentioned, the other school. So I decided I want to have that. And boom, I did. I forgot. And I forgot so much. And it's like I could see the memory of my life just getting wiped and wiped and wiped. And it's like, no, it's too late. It's gone. And then I had very little recall. So that's what happened around age 14.
Is it
For the next
reversible at
2
all?
years. Sorry, what?
Is it reversible, like the forget
I've
program?
tried to reverse it, but there's a lot of blocks and stuff. I think it's part of that human integration thing, being a personality, integrated personality or whatever. It's harder than if you don't forget
all
anything.
of all those things. And yeah, I mean, we watch the shows.
But not just those things, but also it's like if I had read a book when I was like a little kid and you have that book in your hands, like some movies will show you, open it at a random page, choose the number of the line and the number of the word in the line, and I would tell you what that word was. It was like that, right?
Mhm.
So, I think also it was, I definitely think it's to do with being relatable and being, relating in a better way. Not like, it's true, it's not 100%, but it's a lot better. And if you're delivering the message of empowerment on the planet, you need to be relatable. I mean, a lot of the feedback, I would say 90% of the feedback I got, first of all, when I first became public, or even before when I used to release information and it would go out there, the feedback was, yeah, but that's Inelia. That's not me. That's nothing I can do. That's nothing I can develop. I'll never be able to do that. I'll never be able to be empowered. I mean, Inelia can because that's her and, she's special and different. But me, I don't think so. I can't get rid of these programs, it's like, that's impossible. That's humanly impossible. So that's why it had to be a more relatable Inelia, more human Inelia, because of that. And I'm pretty sure, but I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the reason why it's not reversible for me is because of that.
Yeah.
Once it becomes active, if it comes back, then it's like a lot of the work we've done to integrate and become a singular person would vanish. It'd be really hard. Plus, also, there's a little bit of interest on different surprises and things. Otherwise, what happened in school is like so extremely boring to the point of despair. It continues like that, right?
You're not the only one that felt that way about school.
I'm sure I wasn't. I heard of a lot of kids that were above average intelligence who get so bored they, become dropouts and they do bad in school because it's so boring. But that was the reason why I left and didn't come back very much. And then, it's like, even though I didn't have that memory after 14, it was still extremely boring.
You'd spend all this time remembering your locker combination.
Don't know what it was.
Completely lost it.
I couldn't even remember where it was. So I
kind of even lost what class am I at going to.
Oh my god, yeah, I have nightmares about that stuff
what
too.
period is this and what class is it supposed to be in? How can you possibly ask the office lady, what class do I have next? 3/4 of the way through your senior year of school, how could you not know what class you have next?
So in England, there was something called tutor room. The tutor room was where you came in the morning, you went to your tutor room with a tutor teacher. Just around, one of the teachers was your tutor for the last 2 years. And they took attendance. And so that's how they knew that you were either there or you weren't there. But I found that to be extremely boring also, so hardly ever went there. I remember there was one class that I found interesting. I can't remember which one it was. Probably mathematics or something. And I was coming out of the class and my tutor teacher saw me. And he looked at me and he said, Inelia, you're here. I says, yes, I am here. He says, why? But you weren't a tutor this morning. And I said, no, I wasn't. And he said, well, so you missed the roll call. And I says, yes, I missed the roll call. And then he looked at me like funny and he said, do you do this often, that you come into class but you don't bother to go to the tutor? I says, yeah, all the time. So what you're saying is that you haven't missed so many days of school. Oh, well, I don't stay the whole day. I just go to the classes that I'm interested in. And he's like, I'm going to put here that you were here today. I says, what other classes do you find interesting? This one and this one and this. Okay, so you were here on Monday, on Tuesday, on Friday. Okay, so he
fixed it a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't want you to fail.
He didn't. No.
That's nice.
But before that, I mean, up to the age of 14, they would send like the truant officers to my house, and I'd be off somewhere else. Because travel in the public system in England was free until you were 16. I would go to the bus depot and grab a bus to a different city or London or something, and I would spend the whole day there. And if I knew anybody there, I might stay the night, or maybe for a week even, and then come back. Yeah, so it wasn't like I would be home for the inspector to find me.
And the people that you visited were just like, sure, come on in for a week. We don't care.
Yes.
No explanation.
Yes.
It's funny because that would not fly in like at least this day and age in the US. It's like lockdown campuses, security guards. If you're not in a classroom, like during the class hours, not during the transition period, it's like you get put in the naughty like gymnasium or something like that. Like it's crazy. You can't go anywhere.
Middle school and high school like that?
Yeah.
It's like that too, but I just couldn't do it. They put me in detention once and then they banned me from detention for creating a something or other rebellious.
Coup or something.
The breakfast club.
Coup. No,
Did you do a breakfast club?
No, it was more like a coup. I took over. And
No, that's a breakfast club.
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club.
it wasn't bad,
That wasn't a bad movie. That was great.
I don't know. I don't remember it, but
That was
it's like
the defining movie of our era.
yeah. So they banned me from detention.
Nobody gets banned from detention.
They want the plebs to, be frightened and scared little kids, and it's like
Oh, you were teaching them not to be
I
afraid.
gave the teacher a crisis of career. I think they might have left. I don't know. Something happened. It wasn't good in that sense. It was great for the kids.
You've
Oh,
had
yeah.
those conversations, I'm sure, Fred, with Inelia before. It's like, oh shit. Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
It's about psychological abuse of isolating individuals, little children who are being formed, and how can you live with this? And children, let's unite and let's do something interesting and whatever.
They're like, you're right. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, there was
That
more
should
than
be a
one
movie.
teacher that left after I had a word with them. When I was in high school.
You were disassembling the entire educational
All the
system,
concepts.
one teacher at a time.
They were very good and they got, thumbs up and well done. And they're still teaching.
So funny.
Anyway, so when you were discussing, you discussed why you left South America, why you went to UK and then Ireland. But I don't remember that you said why and when you came to the US. So that story was missing.
So I had 3 children and I had this guidance that I had to have 4 children. And it was most certainly not with the husband that I had at the time. So I separated.
The dark worker one.
Yeah, the dark worker one, not that one. So I separated. And at some point, I was trying to figure out where the father was. Who's the father of this 4th child? And I did some, what's it called? Pendulum.
Pendulum.
So this type of methodology of pendulum you're going to find interesting. I don't know if you've used it or not, but basically you make a cup of tea, right, with a tea bag, right? And then when you ask your question into the tea, as he's brewing, and then you lift your tea bag, and the tea bag becomes the pendulum. So it's a kind of tea leaf reading that is not just the images on the cup. It's actually, it behaves like a pendulum. So I did the tell me yes and no and whatever's, and is he in Europe, is he in South America, is he in whatever, and he's in the States, and I got a yes. And I was like, oh, interesting. Oh my God, I know you're going to go there. It's like, that's a terrible place. Like there's murders every day, people get shot in the street. It's like a war zone. And the poverty, like people starving in the streets there, is like 3rd world country. I'm never going there. It's like bad, so bad. And the educational system, kids, they're like come out at 18 with hardly being able to read and write. It's the worst in the world. That'll be a terrible place. So it took me a few years to to be convinced, right? And I actually, I met an American guy who used to go to Spain every year to this Feria de Sevilla. And we hooked up and we got together, and then I kind of fired him for about a year or 2, and then we started. I got the it has to be now guidance, and that day he emailed me, and then we started conversing again. He came over to see me several times. And then eventually convinced me that I could come and visit him. And the rest is history. I got my kid. And I was happy with that.
And talking about the guidance, I'm also very curious because you have shared before about you have the guidance from Gaia to move out of California because that's where you move, right, to California. And do you find a guidance, or it was an orchestration moving to the Olympic Peninsula after the guidance of moving from California, out of California?
I think, well, at the time I thought I was getting tricked. Because, Larry made himself available to be very supportive and helpful and cute. And, my marriage was over. So, yeah. But it's a very, I had other options, and I took the option to be with Larry. So, but even and I asked that question: does me going?
I made a pact with the tea bags.
The question was, would moving up north with Larry facilitate the delivery of the message of empowerment? And he would say yes.
Good job, Larry. Yay. So speaking of Larry, I remember you asked, I think several of us, I remember Fred's AMA at least, about how he took steps to stop drinking. And curious from your experience, like, what did you do to step out of that addiction expression, however you want to call it? It wasn't mentioned in the first hour, but we've talked about it before. So what did you do and how did you do it?
Funnily enough, it happened on my trip from California to be with him up north.
Right. I got hijacked by a one-eyed dog at a laundromat.
We gotta tell this story.
I got hijacked by a one-eyed dog in a laundromat. It was a pit bull of some kind. And the process of being hijacked was like...
What does that even mean? I got hijacked by a dog.
How does a dog hijack you?
Okay.
There's a one-eyed dog at a laundromat.
A one-eyed dog.
Yeah, that explains it.
Tell us more.
So there are beings who exert control in various methods, and they usually use an open door. And your open door could be either your open door or another's open door who's close to you. So you can be manipulated by other people's open doors if you have connections to them. Or you yourself could be manipulated, right? Mm-hmm. And so in my case, I had an open door to negativity through alcohol and addiction, tobacco, whatever. And so while we were getting together and going to go to Europe and go to this event, and I was going to go support, I got hijacked by a one-eyed dog at a laundromat whose owner bought me 3 beers for some unrandom damn reason. I'm like, no, I really don't want to drink. I'm doing my laundry, getting ready to go home. Now's not a great time in Port Angeles to be drunk and try to drive home, is it? No, probably not. But okay, 1 beer, sure, I'll have a free beer. Which turned into more than a free beer, more beers and more beers. And somehow or other, I managed to make it to Clallam Bay, where they have a tavern, a bar, where there's free whiskey too. It's like, that's great. Just what I needed, whiskey and beer. And so I kind of passed out in the car and disconnected from her, and she was like, lost touch with me. Yeah. And I got like 40 texts in the morning, and we're like,
where are you?
What's going on? Where are you? Disconnected. And that was me being hijacked by a one-eyed dog at a laundromat.
So from my perspective, there's another person on the planet who's very similar to me. Very, very similar. And he has the same capacities, abilities, pretty much. And when we were very small, we were together, trained together. And then at some point, we weren't allowed to hang out together anymore. And it basically is a kind of the light dark balance on the planet, if a certain character comes in and a different equally able character comes into the other side, because at the time it was going to be a global ascension process for the entire for entire planet when we came in, but then it changed. Anyways, so this character had been is extremely possessive, but also destructive. So he would be behind a lot of the attacks that I received. And the people around me had negative open doors to alcohol and other negativities, and he would possess them and do things, or possess the people around them. And so every single boyfriend and husband that I'd ever had, he would tell me before, he was like a few hours or before, when I got together with him, he would say, I'm going to make them my bitch. And I'm going to torture you through them. I'm going to stop you through them. And I'm like, buggers, you know? So and it would happen every time. And then after they would do something really terrible, they would fall asleep and he would come in at an energetic level. Sometimes, you know, it's like a very almost physical level. And say, see, he's my bitch now. And I'm going to make him do this, and the other tomorrow. And they would do that exact thing. So I was driving up and I saw one of the signs was like he can possess, or his people can possess, or his demons, or whatever you might want to call them. His group of mystics can possess animals who are damaged in some way, like through abuse or usually, or sometimes through medications. And I was driving up and I saw by the side of the road one of those dogs, and it was looking at me, like right at me, and it was one of those creatures. And whenever I used to see one of those dogs, that was a pre-warning of a possession, right? So watch, be careful, watch out, become extra diligent.
It's like a calling card.
A calling card, like a tease, you know? And I saw one of those, so I called Larry and I said, beware of the dog with a strange look, right? Beware of that. There's an attack coming. You know, it's like there's a possession coming. So be very careful. And avoid alcohol. And so then that happened to him. And yeah, it's like, what happened was like, he came in because he had a door through him. I was connected to Larry. By then, we hadn't been together yet, but we were connected on an energetic level. So when Larry was in a state of possession, his energy came through Larry and came to me. I was somewhere in Oregon, I think. And there was what you might call a rape happening, because through that energy line. And I had two options. It's like disconnect with Larry and that will stop, right? Or, you know, like put up with it and then talk to Larry in the morning and see if we can fix this. So it's not a pleasant story, right? And then in the morning, I said to Larry, this is what happened, right? So I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go home. And he said, no, he said, I will stop. I refuse to be his bitch anymore. And I'm going to stop. And then as he was saying that, I said to him, now you're hearing that this poor person, he just needs somebody to listen to him and he's going to be your best friend. He says, how did you know that? He says, because that's the process, right? Now he's going to kill your kids. Now he's going to, you know. How did you know that? Because we're connected. I can hear what he's saying. So I can't do this. I'm not going to do it. I mean, without the other guys, you know, it didn't matter, but you're awake and you're powerful. You're a powerful person with lineages that are very powerful. I can't survive this one. So it's over. And then he turns around, is quiet for a while, and then he says, it's going to end. I'm never drinking again, and I'm never going to be his bitch again. And when I tapped into... Or smoking, yeah. Because I explained the thing about addiction.
It was an addiction.
The addiction is not actually the substance, but it's actually the addiction that's the open door to negativity. So it's just, okay, I'm giving up all those addictions.
Well, giving up addiction, period.
Yeah, addiction. So I tapped into that to see, because people have said that to me before. Guys,
I can only imagine.
So many times, and it was never true.
I have tried to quit drinking and smoking plenty of times in the past, but in this case, it wasn't about me.
And I tapped into it, And I saw that it was true. Oh, he actually just did. And he severed that connection. So, okay, we'll test it out, see how it goes. So it had to be like from 1 second to the next, because there was no other possibility. And even without those addictions, he has been aware of, and I've shown him how other people can get hijacked around you. I going to a restaurant, I scan for addicts.
Mm-hmm.
There's an addict in the kitchen, I have to be uber careful about all of the food that I get on my plate. Right? And usually in kitchens, there's a lot of addicts.
Yeah, I remember at the first place we went to the airport on the way to Europe,
Yes.
we went and got, it was curry or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So no bell pepper.
And no bell peppers. Oh, no, we don't even have bell peppers. And then we brought the food home and opened the thing, and there was bell pepper garnish.
On big,
over it.
big color. It's like a joke, you know, like
Almost like a joke.
like ha ha ha.
Sure.
Now you
Well,
can do.
not only don't you have bell
Ha, ha.
peppers, there's none in the kitchen, but we're going to have it for your garnish,
Yes.
especially for you.
And we went back, and they said, but you know,
We
they
don't
went
even
into the
have 'em.
kitchen. And it's like they tried to find who put in there. They couldn't find anyone.
Because they don't cook with them.
They don't have them.
They said, we don't have those here. Did you guys put that on yourself? What's going on? They didn't believe us. But it just tells you the level.
That's the level. So he figured it out, right? He saw it happening around me. And like one of the ding ding dings is like, is this person becoming too distractive? Not destructive, but distracts, right? And what-
Destructive.
Yeah. And how are they distracting me? Okay. So that's how he stops and went from one moment to the next.
Good job, Larry.
Very nice. I have a question for Larry. When did you move to the Macaw reservation? You talk about like being in Alaska a lot, but when or how did you decided to go back to the Macaw reservation or to Washington?
It's funny the way I get those orchestrations happen, because when I was little, I lived in Nia Bay. My mom was a member of the Macaw tribe, and we'd go what everyone in the tribe calls home. We go home every now and again. We had aunties and, places to be, uncles, things like that, but we never actually lived there except for when my dad had met my mom when there was Air Force Base at the reservation. And he met my mom at the club, which was the only place on the reservation since it was a dry reservation. There's no alcohol. On the Air Force Base on the reservation, it wasn't technically the reservation. So they had a bar and a club and dancing and all that. So pretty much all the girls ended up marrying Air Force guys because that's where the cute boys from wherever are, and alcohol, and you know how it goes. So when I would go back to the res with my mom, the guys and the gals on the res that live there are very, very, I don't know what's the word. It's possessive, I guess, and mean, and that it doesn't matter who you are. They're just it's like angry, just a lot of anger. So you walk down the road, you get called all kinds of names, you get rocks thrown at you or beat up, fights, that kind of thing. So I never had a very good impression of Nia Bay, and there is literally nowhere on the planet I would want to go to less. It's like the slums of India, that'd be better. Yeah. So there was zero chance I was actually going to Nia Bay. And when I went to the Coast Guard, I mean, I'll make it reasonably short, but when I went into the Coast Guard, it was so that I'd go to school, because I wanted to go learn how to do aquaculture, which is, raising fish. I don't know why that got into my head as a good idea, but I wanted to make a parking garage like they have in Seattle. You know how it has that swirl? I don't know if you park at SeaTac Airport, it has those parking garages that are like swirls. And I figured I could pump water to the top, and then it would run down the swirl, and then the fish would be in there, and they'd be swimming, so they'd be really good to eat fish because they'd be exercising, So in order to do that, I had to go to school and learn aquaculture. That was what I thought. And I did. And it turned out there were 2 places to go to aquaculture school. One of them was somewhere like Alabama or something. I was like, I don't know about Alabama. And the other one was Port Angeles, which Port Angeles apparently, had mountains, it has ocean, it's a nice place, and they have a college there, and it's one of the best that teach aquaculture in the world. So I guess I'll go to Port Angeles. Plus, it's close to where my mom lives. Nia Bay isn't too far from there. I sure shit ain't going to Nia Bay though. So yeah, that's where I went with my college money from the Coast Guard, which turned out to be $100 a month, which turns out to be nowhere near enough to actually go to school with. So I ended up at my mom's. And when I went to my mom's in Nia Bay, she introduced me around the village, said Larry came home. He finally came home. And I went to the housings, and she brought me all over the place. And they said, here, you want a house? Like, okay. Here's a house on the beach. I was like, that's nice. Okay, I'll stay here. Thank you. Need a job? It's like, sure. What kind of jobs are there? How about you want to do this one? You could do the newsletter. You could teach adult basic education, a computer lab. It's like, okay, that sounds nice. And so I was sucked in there, and I got a job in a house, and I never actually went to school for aquaculture. And then my cousin said, hey, you want to go fishing one time? And I said, okay, sure. I did Coast Guard. I know boats. Let's go. Brought me fishing, and in 2 days, at a half and a hair fishing, I made more than I made 2 weeks of working on a computer lab teaching adult basic education. Like, okay, fishing's for me, because I did the math, right? If I made this much on a half share, what did the guy who owns a boat make? Mm-hmm. And not only that, he tried to feed us Pop-Tarts and animal crackers for the entire trip. That's all our food was. Like,
sea rations.
This is really bad. There's other foods, right? So I said, I guess I got to get my own boat, because then I can make a big paycheck, and I can eat what I want, and I can go home when I want. I said, I'm getting my own boat. He laughed at me. He said, yeah, everyone says that. And it wasn't a couple weeks later, I had my own boat. I was like, yeah, forget that. I'm not going out with Pop-Tarts and animal crackers again. That's stuck. Mm-hmm. I told my job, I said, well, I wanted to go fishing. And she said, well, you can either go fishing or you can have a job, because if you go fishing, you're fired. It's like, well, that was easy. See you later. And that's how I got to Nia Bay.
So you didn't get a chance like a following question. So now I'm very curious, because you also mentioned like you could have lived in Kauai, like you love Hawaii, right? In Kauai, but you're not there because of the connection to the earth, right? But you also mentioned,
sorry,
yeah. But you say that you have a connection to the earth here. Yeah. So I just want to know more about that. Like once you back to Nia Bay, and then did you feel the connection, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, they're like when you travel the planet, right, and look for where do I belong, you feel like you belong here. There you'll find spots like this spot's nice, this spot's nice, this spot's nice, and these are like nice spots. But then you'll find, oh, this is my spot. That's a little bit different feeling, right? So Nia Bay, despite the angry people, I really wasn't. It really wasn't so much the people as the place. I could finally see it. And when I could see it, I knew it. And then the people adjusted to match the place, and they weren't mean to me, not the slightest bit, not once ever. Anyone. From the moment I moved home, none. That never ever happened again. That was
your nickname, though.
What?
How did you get your nickname?
I guess that maybe was why it didn't happen.
Scary Larry.
Because how I was seen changed, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't know. My nickname is Scary Larry, but I don't know why it's Scary Larry. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it works. Mm-hmm. Even, the guards, I think I remember it was quite funny in COVID time. The guards at the gate. We had our house at the Ozette, and we have a place at the res, the boat. So we're back and forth and crossing the res border all the time. And they really, really didn't like anybody
doing that.
leaving the res. It's like, don't you know it's locked down? You're going to kill us all.
Yeah.
And but they really didn't give us any hassle, except for one time. He comes and says, you really got to be careful. You're going to bring COVID to our res. It's going to stick on your truck, right? And I'm like, it's going to stick on my truck. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, respond to this. Because that's the most absurd thing I'd ever heard. But he was sincere, right? So I told him that I would wax the crap out of my truck so it's super slippery. Nothing can stick.
He says, "Oh yeah."
He said, "That's a great idea. You do that, right?" And never again did anybody say anything about me coming in and off the res with my shiny truck. No
it was
COVID
bizarre because we would see other in like Macas getting to that stop and getting turned around to go back. They were not allowed to leave because their reason for leaving wasn't good enough. So, I need to go to the store. But you went to the store yesterday.
Yeah. You can go to Washburn's.
Yeah.
There were
what do you
people
need to buy? Do you have receipts?
Hadn't left the res for 2 years.
Yeah.
And posted their first trip to towns.
Yeah.
That's how closed off it was.
Yeah.
It was in the national paper how good a job they were doing of sealing
after
the border.
that happened to them,
yeah,
we would drive up and they'd look in, see him, he says, okay.
Not even ask me.
They never asked us anything. Nothing.
I did bribe the guard with a jar of cure.
Yes.
A little bit of ginger, and we had chaga in there, and we had a little bit of...
We made a cure for the flu symptoms, basically.
The border guard, he was the one that was exposed to everyone. It's like, here you go.
This will protect you.
This will protect you, and so...
So one of the things that Larry, I think, may have forgotten, but...
Probably.
There's an exercise. There's an exercise that it's called the Gaia, I think the Gaia connection or the Gaia guidance, where basically you allow
that's right. The Gaia meditation. Where on the planet should you
It's
be?
maximum, right? The best positive outcome.
Yes, I do remember that.
He wrote me an email, very, very long email. It was like an essay almost. But basically it asked, I don't understand. I love Kauai. I connected with it. It's beautiful. It's a perfect place to be and everything else. But every time I do this exercise, I end up at the res at his cave, right? A sacred cave he has at the res. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Because, well, to me, Gaia is telling you that Kauai is great for visiting, but where you should be, apparently, is at the res.
Yeah, I do. Now I remember that. There's that too.
Yes. I think many of us did that exercise, right?
Right. The guided meditation. The event that I held and put on in Berkeley, California, because it was close to Sacramento, so it was likely that she would show up, which she said she wasn't going to show up, but she actually did.
To show up.
It's like, oh boy, that was a tough one.
Yeah.
But in that event, she did a meditation, which was the Gaia. Gosh, I wish I remember the title exactly. Something about Gaia guided meditation, connection exercise, something like that. We'll put the link in.
I think it's the guided. I think
guided Gaia exercise, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Either way, it was a video we'd done, and when we were watching the playback, it was filled with orbs. Coming into people's heads,
yes,
playing around and dancing on their shoulders and dancing around the entire meditation the entire time. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that meditation or that exercise. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, there was another question. When you were talking about, Inelia asked when you woke up.
Yeah.
Right? That was one of the questions. And then I didn't quite understand what you meant when you said Inelia was in your head or something, and she told you to lift your head and open your eyes. I lost the thread on all of that. What was Inelia out of time? Was she talking to your head?
I'll set the scene. I had watched the Bill Ryan interview, right? And then I looked for if she had anything else, which she didn't have anything else. And then I finally managed to find, she had a book. I think it was an alien book, Invented with an Alien. I read that book, but that was like very short. And for someone who can read a 1,000-page book overnight, that 5-minute book was like nowhere near enough. So I looked more and more and more, and I found, what's this Ascension 101 thing? That might be, it is her website. What's there? And that was the
Ascension
101 course, which was like $1 million. I was like, gosh.
$99.
It's like, okay, I'm going to buy it anyway. So I bought that $1 million course, and then I was on my boat. And I don't know if you ever tried to reach or get in touch with or email or anything, Inelia, back in the Bill Ryan video days before there was even an event, but there was no way. So it's not like I called her, texted her, emailed her, or anything to her. I could barely even buy the Ascension 101 course. It was like
very hard.
very difficult to get to the pay now and get it. It was like there was a lot of walls between getting that in there. And I was in my bunk on my boat out in the ocean fishing. So she wasn't like physically there, and I had no way of contacting her. But while I was doing the course, while I was playing the course in my bunk in the evening, drifting in the sea, she came into my head. And I could feel her fingers under my chin to lift it up. It wasn't like I got the message to lift no, it was fingers under my chin, two of them, and they lifted my head up. But it didn't work because I still couldn't see anything. And then she said in her voice, "Open your eyes." And I'm playing the Ascension 101 course in my headphones, so the words in the headphones changed from whatever it was that the headphone class, the audio. The audio stopped and she just started talking. I mean, the audio didn't stop. The audio changed and her words became different words. And then she said to open my eyes. And I'm like, ooh. So I've been walking around with my head down and my eyes closed for a very long time.
So that was the message, to lift your head up and open your eyes?
Yep.
So Inelia, I've heard this from a lot of people, like that you've shown up and, given messages or shown up in dreams. You must be quite busy. Kind of reminds me of a bit of Santa Claus.
It's really good to clarify it.
Yeah.
I have found that when people see me in their dreams, it's their personal language of their higher self talking to them. So it actually has nothing to do with me, but it's their higher self giving them a message. And that's a language they can understand. Because, in real life, when they're awake, this person makes sense. She knows what she's talking about. It's actually first time, a lot of people have said, it's the first time that somebody's actually saying the things that I know and that makes sense. And it's a great validation.
Mm-hmm.
So when they see me in their dreams and I'm giving them advice or telling them what to do, whatever, that is their higher self expressing something they have to listen to because it makes sense. And from what they have placed authority on.
Mm-hmm. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was trying to think maybe you've got like some Santa Claus abilities or something like.
You go everywhere all at once.
Travel around the world and.
No, there was a point, and it's still going on, that if I kind of quieten down my thoughts and I listen, I tap into the human collective, there's millions, if not billions, of people praying to me. They're praying to Inelia Benz. It's like, are you kidding me? What is that about? And at first I was in a lot of judgment around that, like righteous and in judgment. It's like, really? The message of empowerment, and what are you going to do with it? You give your power away. That's the exact opposite. So when I was younger, I would be like, I would get really righteous and tell them to F off and all the things. And then some years back, probably about 10 years, probably around the time when I became public, because of course that collective voice is not inside time space, right? So I think probably a few years after I became public, it got much, much worse. And I was swearing and all the things. And then I got the message and guidance. Be kind. Step out of righteousness and negativity. Listen. And it's like, it's fine. There's no issue. There's no problem here. So I sat down and I listened, and it's like one voice would become louder. Please, Inelia, help my kid heal, and blah, 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 blah. And the kindness at the time was, I would say, okay, sure. And did they hear it? It doesn't matter, does it? If they heard it, it would have been their higher self, or even their higher self perceiving, oh, this is possible now, or something. But it wasn't from a place of rejection, righteousness, and aggression. It was from a place of kindness. And a lot of those messages were blessings. Can you bless my kid? Can you bless my home? And, so sure. I was taught how to bless people when I was a tiny little kid. No problem. I know how to do that. So that would be the closest, I think, that would be that. But my actual actions would have been just like a few weeks or months while I learned to be kind and compassionate. And after that, it's just a global, anybody who wants a blessing, they can get it. Right? Kind of energy. So that would be the closest one, I think.
Nice. That's cool. Thanks for sharing and elaborating to give that perspective.
Yeah.
So we also have another question that we've asked so far in every AMA. So it was probably not a surprise yet. And either of you can answer, whoever is ready for it. What's the most interesting thing you've learned over the last year?
Go ahead, honey.
No, it's you.
No, it's you. It's AMIS. What's the most interesting thing we've learned? Well, the most interesting thing we've learned is that you can follow your guidance and and do something that seems a bit ridiculous. Like in the example of our hill house, write a letter on parchment paper with real ink and
essential oils
and close the envelope and put the wax seal with the thing, and even order the wax and order the things and put it in the mailbox and clear your programs, I suppose. And then the mailman will come pick the letter up in the mailbox, and it will get to a person who's not interested in anything to do with anything about selling a house on a hill, and they will change their mind and find that actually they are interested in selling their house on the hill, and to you, and for the amount of money that you have. Perfect. Yeah, that was the following guidance. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But it's also sometimes it's like, are you sure?
It's like, really?
Really? Write a letter and wax seal it and send it? That's going to work?
Really? Have a workshop?
Have a workshop?
Really?
A healing workshop?
A
Really?
healing workshop? Really?
Right now?
What?
Okay.
Let's do that then.
And so, I mean, it isn't always clear the why you got to do X, Y, Z sometimes, although sometimes it makes sense. Other times it's like, well, I'm not quite sure what this guidance is about, but let's
see what happens.
Let's follow it and see what happens, right? So I think that's one of the most interesting things.
Very nice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. That's a pretty interesting thing to be able to do, right?
Yeah. Not so much a learning. Also another one, not so much a learning, but a more obvious thing is the gap between what you say you want and what you're actually manifesting.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And then you have to be really honest with yourself. And then things start shifting. Or getting more of what you're getting. So to me, what that was from like wanting to have I said, I want to become a best-selling novelist. And the words came out, but all the energies behind it was like, yeah, fuck that. Right? And I had to be honest with myself, because even writing it out, I noticed that it could be like a break in perception. Yeah, I really want this, right? But you scratch it a little bit and it falls apart. So I scratched it a little bit and it was like, yeah, what for? It was like, who cares? And it's like, yeah, whatever. I just like to write books. I don't care if they sell or not. If anybody reads it, I don't care. So even in that attitude, it's like, where does that come from? So you follow the energy lines and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's there, and that's there, and that's there. So, and then processing all those programs, negative programs, limiting programs, because, it's like, imagine all the projects we can do if I do literally embody a best-selling novelist, and we get millions of dollars for each book every year. Millions of dollars every year for each book. Imagine all the projects we can do here at the peninsula or, around the world. So, but that can also mean, then you need the agreement of all those people you're going to do projects with. And then, some of those people don't want it. And, do you really want to deal with all those people with the projects and blah, 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 and whatevers. And so it kind of adds up, and then you can scratch a little bit more, and go, all right, so can I answer that guidance and say yes to becoming a best-selling novelist? Can I say yes? And then you have to process all the stuff that says no. Actually, it's so comfortable not being that, and blah, 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 more stuff. So eventually you get to the same place of having the statement of manifestation and the allies aligned and the path, a believable story to manifest. So for me, this year is like doing that at an active level with an example in my own life, because I walk my talk. I don't just mention guidance or theories, actually do this stuff. Right? We have somebody coming.
I think we have guests.
Yeah, that would be the learning that I could talk about.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing, guys. Do our panelists have any other questions to ask before we wrap up?
Closing remark? Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Larry and Inelia, this has been fun getting to know you better.
Yeah.
And until next time, our listeners, thanks for supporting us, making this possible. You're supporting your stars, helping us to produce this podcast and make time available to be able to do it. You can join us every Friday for an after party where we'll talk about the topics that came up today. You might have questions, further questions.
Invite Inelia to our Ask Me Anything follow-up Friday call.
Yeah, of course.
To make a rare appearance.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
She showed up in a couple of Fridays ago, I believe, too. You had a question for me from my AMA, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be awesome. So it's every Friday, 9:00 Pacific, and details will be posted in Walk With Me Now, in Subscribestar for our Star Tribe, as well as in Substack for our second half subscribers. So until then, we'll see everybody next time.
Bye.
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 Thank you.